Hello there. Dr. Bill Crawford here, psychologist, speaker, author of 8 books, host of 2 PBS specials, here again to bring you another tip on how to help you create the life you want. Specifically, how to use my life from the top of the mind philosophy to bring more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. Today I want to talk about the concept of self-righteousness, especially the neuroscience around that. Because I think very few of us will say, yes, I am very self-righteous and I'm proud of it. We know that it's not something that we really want to advertise, but have you noticed how much is out there today? And the reason I'm doing this, I was reading a book by Brené Brown, one of my favorite authors. She's got a book called Atlas of the Heart. She talks about a lot of different things. Where do we go to do this? Where do we go to feel this? And one of those was self-righteousness. And she spoke of a quote that she heard in an AA meeting a long time ago. And I'm a big fan of AA. My dad was a recovering alcoholic. I grew up in an AA culture. I have a tremendous respect for that particular program and the people in it. And she said she heard something from one of the participants that, one of the things that gets in the way of my sobriety, and I think one of the things we can say it gets in the way of our journey, of our ability to access our best, is self-righteousness. Mostly because it feels so good. And then there's this line, like a pig rolling in shit. She really resonated with that. It told, man, I don't find myself doing that. So whether or not we're doing that, I think it's fair to say that self-righteousness does feel good, doesn't it? And I think we need to understand that, because I think that can get in the way of us looking at that as a question of, really, is that a quality or characteristic I want to hang on to? Is that how I want to define myself? Would I recommend this to someone I love? And I think the reason self-righteousness feels so good is it protects us from feeling bad to some degree. Because I think we're now in this kind of binary question of, okay, am I right or are they right? Am I wrong or are they wrong? And we don't want to be wrong, so we make them wrong. And that makes us right. And so often this perspective we have, whatever we believe is true in terms of what's going on in the world or some particular perspective on a situation, we just kind of get really self-righteous about it. And you notice there's an energy behind that, kind of a in-your-face kind of stuff. And what I've found is self-righteousness is not the same as confidence. Confidence, and by the way, I think Brené Brown calls it grounded confidence, really comes from a sense of feeling good about the qualities or characteristics or the values that we hold. So it's not always a particular perspective, it's the qualities or characteristics we are bringing to a situation. Are we bringing curiosity? Are we bringing an open mind? Are we bringing a respect from other people's perspective? One of the things I do in my presentations is I encourage people to challenge me. I say, hey, if you hear something that doesn't make sense to you, let me know. And the other day I was doing a presentation and someone said, hey, Bill, I'm going to challenge you on that. And he gave me a perspective on what he was saying. I went, that makes sense. I can totally get that. And I shifted how I'm thinking and feeling about a particular situation based on what I heard. So there's a difference, I think, between self-righteousness, which just means I am right about myself and what I believe, or kind of self-definition. We are defining ourselves as curious, open-minded, respectful of other people's perspective. Now, it doesn't mean we always agree, okay? That's not the important thing. But it isn't about who's right. I think when we get into that who's right debate, that's where very little positive, solution-focused conversation comes from. It's really this attempt to convince the other person that they're wrong and we're right. And that's where that self-righteousness comes from. And the reason I think it feels so good is because we're afraid of being wrong. And that has to do with what part of the brain we're in. We're talking about the neuroscience of self-righteousness. The need to be right comes from, I think, this defensive, protective part of the brain. The willingness to be open to another's perspective, being curious, being respectful, comes from, I think, this upper 80% of the brain. So I call it the top of the mind. That's where my philosophy of life from the top of the mind comes from. I really believe that we want to choose the qualities or characteristics that we want to bring to life. And if it is curiosity, and if it's open-mindedness, and this is respect for another person's opinion, and if it's the ability to hear another perspective without needing to defend ours, if that's a way we want to define ourselves, if that's the statement we want to make about who we are, if that's what we would teach or recommend to those we love or those we lead, then I think that is what's really important. Because we can feel really good about that and still be open to another's perspective, even if it's different from ours. Because if the connection or the relationship is more important than the need to be right, more important than this sense of self-righteousness, then what we can do is we can make that connection more important, and we can maybe create more of a solution-focused conversation. Even if the relationship is more important than the need to be right, hey, looks like we disagree on this, never but, by the way. We disagree, but you're wrong. We disagree with it around this particular perspective, and in my opinion, our relationship is more important than a particular perspective. So if you would like to kind of shift from that self-righteous perspective to a confidence in the qualities and characteristics, the values that you bring to life, without needing to make other people agree with that or impress that upon other people, instead you want to be open, you want to be curious, you want to be respectful of other people's opinions, just like you want them to be respectful of yours. If that's who you want to be, then what I would encourage you to do is begin to think of how is that different from in the past when we've kind of get into that argument about I'm right and you're wrong. That's where we want to not kind of use this old brain that says, yes, it feels good to be righteous about who I am or what I believe, and that makes you wrong. So we don't want to go that. We want to get in the upper 80% of the brain. Clear, confident, creative, compassionate, open-minded part of who we are. Because I think that's what we would recommend to someone we love. If you're loving these videos, please hit the like button. You know how everybody loves it when you like it. And share it with your friends if you feel it would be valuable. If you would like me to come to your organization and kind of teach this life from the top of the mind philosophy that talks about how to get to a certain part of the brain and deal with stress, anxiety, frustration, resentment by actually avoiding a certain part of the brain, and even how to be more influential in our conversations by getting other people to shift from that resistant brain to the receptive brain, all you got to do is go to my website, billcrawfordphd.com. or just Google Bill Crawford, Ph.D. I'll come up on the first page. Hit the contact button. Let me know what you're interested in. Love to talk with you about that. In the meantime, here's to you. Bring more clarity about the difference between being self-righteous and confident in the values and the qualities we bring to life. Choosing that in a very purposeful way. More clarity, confidence, creativity to everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.